Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Megan here, the Healing Foods Coach, and I hope you're doing well on this wonderful Wednesday. It has been an interesting day today, this 11th day of September. We had massive rain showers earlier, and also we had some hail, which was really unseasonal and kind of crazy to see that happen. And now the sky is out. Literally, it is as sunny out right this minute here at just after 6 in the evening as the screen in my background. So go figure. Right, let's get to it. So today's topic is 3 tips to help you lose weight. I don't just mean for a special event. I mean to lose weight for good, to boost your energy for good, and to improve your overall health for good if you follow these 3 tips. Okay. And many of you are probably already practicing these, or at least one of them, hopefully starting to practice all 3 of them. But here's what they are. And there's no real secret to them, but they're super important. And the first one is reduce your carbohydrate intake. Because as long as we are overeating, which we typically do in this world, we follow a standard Western diet, and we often eat loads and loads of carbs, not just the complex starchy plant carbs that we find in nature, but a lot of highly processed and refined carbohydrates as well. Every time we do that, we are elevating our blood glucose levels, which of course will then increase our insulin levels. And as long as our insulin levels are raised, the body stores any excess food we eat as fat. And any stored body fat we are carrying will not be lost. It simply will not let us. We are in a fight or flight mode where the body holds on to any excess weight. So the first key is we have to reduce our carbohydrate intake. Now, some of you are considering going on a much more, just an overall lower carbohydrate or low carb diet. And I would suggest that you probably don't want to consume more than between 50 and maybe 60 grams of total carbohydrates per day. You may be able to get away with a bit more if you're super athletic and you constantly are exercising all the time. You might be able to burn through more, and therefore a little bit more than that you can probably get away with and feel great and still see weight loss. But if you are somebody who is deciding to go on a ketogenic approach, particularly if you have metabolic dysregulation, or you have chronic high insulin levels, type 2 diabetes, then you will probably want to try going for a ketogenic approach where you keep your total carbohydrates to 20 total grams per day or less. Now, let me point this out very, very quickly. When you're on a ketogenic diet, yes, of course, you can still enjoy the carbohydrates in the form of vegetables. However, you should be careful and make sure that the ones you are choosing are low in carbohydrates and are as non-starchy as possible, because the starchy carbohydrates are the ones that really do cause us quite a spike in our insulin levels. And obviously raising our blood glucose levels, which then trigger a raise in our insulin levels the way that the body responds to it. And then that, of course, means that anything excess we've eaten, we store then as fat. We will not burn it off easily. And we certainly won't burn it off at that point. Okay, as long as insulin levels are high, our bodies are in a fat storage mode, not a fat burning mode, just to put it simply. So you want to be sure that if you are choosing to keep some vegetables in your diet, even some occasional low carb fruits like berries, then make sure that, particularly with the vegetables, that what you choose are the non-starchy low carb varieties. So avocado, broccoli, cauliflower, you can have onions or garlic, tomatoes, asparagus. Those are the most common ones. Mushrooms can come into there as well. Now, although they are allowed And although many people can eat them and do okay, please bear in mind that many of these plants also tend to have a fair bit of oxalates in them, which can produce crystals that can develop into things like gallstones, okay? If you're not, or kidney stones, I should say, if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that you're not eating too much of these, especially if they are higher in oxalates like spinach and broccoli. But also these plants tend to be notorious for causing bloating and gas, which in the average person. But if you have gut issues like IBS or IBD or other sensitivities, you may want to simply skip them completely. However, feel free to experiment and see how you get on. If you really say love avocado and you enjoy onions and tomatoes and you want to be able to enjoy homemade guacamole, go for it. And hopefully you'll be one of those people that can have it and it doesn't affect them too much. But if you're like me and you can't, then you're probably going to want to cut those out fairly quickly. But we do need to cut down on carbohydrates overall. As a species, we eat far too much of them, particularly the sugary and starchy ones. And also that includes the cereals and the grains, legumes, and pulses as well. Okay, so we need to cut back on those. That is going to make a huge difference in helping us to lose weight. As I say, the less carbs we eat. So basically, you might be wondering, well, why is that? And some of you aren't, I understand. But for those of you who are wondering why that is, when we consume carbohydrates, it gets converted into glucose in the body, of which some of that goes to our brain. Okay. But as long as we are eating glucose from our diets instead of making it through gluconeogenesis, then we are always flooding our bloodstream with loads of glucose, which then triggers the insulin response. So the less carbohydrates, therefore glucose, that we eat, the less of an insulin response we have. Our body is then able to let go of the weight it's holding on to instead of storing more of it continuously. So that is why it's important we cut down on carbohydrates. The other tip to help us lose weight for good, boost our energy, and improve our overall health is to cut out sugar. Now, I'm referring to not just table sugar and the stuff we get, whether it's highly processed things like corn syrup or other sugar forms that appear in cakes and cookies and packaged cereals. We need to cut back or fully eliminate all sugar wherever possible. Glucose, of course, sugar is the simplest. Let me restart. When sugar is broken down in the body, it immediately becomes converted into glucose. And it burns through our system very quickly. Only a tiny little bit of that is ever used as energy for the brain. The majority of it gets stored in our bodies as fat. So if we want to lose fat and stop storing it, we also need to cut it out or eliminate it. And that includes most fruits, by the way, because fructose is also damaging to our cells if we have far too much of it. And in my personal experience, fruit these days tastes naturally so sweet and is so enjoyable that it is so easy to overeat it. In fact, I ate so much fruit before I changed my diet. It was a major contributor as to why I had fatty liver disease, because I was eating so much fruit. I wasn't eating 5 servings a day of vegetables, maybe 1 or 2, but I was eating 5 to 7 servings of fruit a day because I loved fruit. Okay, and the sweetness is what makes us keep going back. And when we're buying fruits that aren't local, if they're shipped in and they're out of season, it's easy to eat loads and loads of fruits at times of the year when normally it wouldn't have been available. The reason I point that out is if we are people who can enjoy occasionally a few handfuls of berries for a few weeks every summer when they're in season. And, if you get them fresh or buy them fresh from like your grocery store or from your farmer's market, fantastic. If you don't have any issues, enjoy them. They are fairly low carbohydrate. They're fairly low in carbohydrates, and they have minimal sugar compared to some of the other fruits that are available. I remember as a kid loving strawberries, but only if they were heaped and covered with either like white sugar, or sometimes my mom would do up treats and I would add a little bit of brown sugar on top of my strawberries because I didn't find they were sweet enough. So naturally, berries tend to have less sweetness to them. Makes it a little easier to manage how much we eat. Now, the path I usually walk with my dogs near the house has wild blackberry bushes growing all along it. And while I don't eat them, we often stop several times because my husband does enjoy to pick fresh ones as we go. Now that season's over. He's got to wait another year, but he doesn't go out and buy berries from the grocery store. He eats them fresh off the bushes when they're in season. A few little small handfuls. That's it. Okay. So eating fruit like that is not necessarily an issue because, again, they're fairly low in sugar and overall sweetness in the taste, and they're fairly low carb. But generally speaking, fruits are something you have to really try to give up because they are so often so sweet, and they have such a high either glucose or fructose or both content that they're going to spike your insulin, which, as we already talked about, or rather I talked about, and you hopefully listen, when your insulin is raised, the body cannot let go of fat. It's in storing mode at that point. That's the purpose for it. That's what happens. So if you want to see the weight shift, then you need to cut out sugar, certainly the refined processed stuff, and definitely added sugars are no good. And I would suggest in the early stages of changing your diet, you probably want to cut out fruit as well. We're heading now, it's September. For most of us, we are in the autumn, heading into the autumn/winter season. And so berries don't grow naturally now anyways. And so our bodies really are fine without fruit. We don't need them. Okay. And it's a time of year where in this sort of season, in this kind of weather, we as humans, as a species, would not have eaten fruit anyways because we wouldn't have found it anywhere. It's outside of the growing season. All right. So I hope that explains. One other thing to add in is that even if you do decide, yes, you want to have a few little handfuls of blackberries or raspberries or strawberries or even blueberries, okay, which is fine, keep in mind, these are berries, they have little seeds in them. And if you struggle with IBS, IBD, and other gut issues, those seeds can absolutely aggravate your situation and make it even worse. So if you have anything like that, I would highly suggest you don't eat them at all. Just cut fruit out, okay? Because you want to get yourself to a place where you are metabolically healthy. You want to get to a place where you are not insulin resistant and you are not struggling with type 2 diabetes. And in order to do that, you got to cut that stuff out. So that would be my suggestion. And the other thing that you want to make sure that you are doing, besides cutting down on your carbohydrates, eliminating sugar, is you want to avoid junk food in general. Okay, whether it's something savory or sweet, avoid it. Don't eat it. If it's been deep fried in oil, if it comes in a package, if it has a shelf life, don't eat it because it's not doing you any good. It's full of preservatives and chemicals and added flavors. And I know, I get it because I was there, right? Those things all taste nice, but they do our bodies no good. And that might be, for some people, that's the hardest thing to give up, is the junk. Why? Because we sometimes eat when we're sad, we eat when we're bored, we eat when we're stressed, we eat when we're angry. And yet none of those situations get better just because we've had a chocolate bar or a bag of chips, or we've had, corn chips and salsa, or we've had anything like that, whether it's Hostess cupcakes or, Frosted Flakes straight out of the box, which I've done before, by the way, whether it's, eating cookie dough from the package, whatever it is, whatever we go to in those moments of trial or stress or anxiety, as much as we think those are feel-good foods because we temporarily, for like 30 seconds or 5 minutes, however long it takes us to eat the item, we feel good for that point. But then what happens? Then we feel guilty. Then we feel bad because, I was going to start my diet today. I was going to stop eating this garbage. I was going to change it. I was going to get better, and I didn't. And look at that. And then it's really easy to just go, forget it. I'll start again tomorrow. And it becomes a cycle. And that is not something that's easy to stop doing, but it is possible. So if we can get rid of the junk food, we don't buy it if it's in our house, but we have, say, neighbors. Now, this is up to you, whatever your conscience tells you, but if you don't want to throw it away, it is essentially garbage, but if you don't want to throw it out like garbage, donate it to somebody who'll eat it. Okay? That's not ideal either, but right now, the point is find a way to get it out of your house so you're not tempted. Because I know for me, as long as any of that stuff was sitting in the house, especially in the early days, like when I was first starting, it was really hard not to want to grab handfuls of cereal or eat handfuls of mixed nuts, which is a big thing for me, which, let me just clarify, some nuts are considered to be okay on the keto diet, and some people can eat them and they seem to be okay, but they're also full of fiber. They're also very high in fats, which in itself is not the issue, but it's really easy to overeat them. And therefore, overall, not good for you. Okay? So, whatever your snack weakness is, if I may suggest, get it out of your house by any means necessary. I would say throw it out. Honestly speaking, nobody should really eat that stuff. So unless you have a neighbor that maybe you don't really like all that much, and you're going to donate this to them, I would suggest throw it out. And if you're like me and you're like, but I just paid for it, I don't want to waste food, that's fine, but it's not going to do you any good. And as long as it's in your cupboard calling your name, it's a temptation and it's easy to give in. My suggestion, if I may, is just bin it now. Get out a giant black garbage bag filled with all the stuff and just throw it all out and get rid of it. Because even if your intention is to never actually eat it, as long as it's in the house, that's a temptation you don't necessarily want to have to deal with, right? So I would say if you've got junk food around your house for whatever reason, throw it out. It's a far bigger waste of your health and your time and your energy and your resources if you eat that stuff and keep yourself feeling horrible than if you throw it out now. Okay? Just putting that out there. But that's it. Those are the 3 main tips. If you want to lose weight for good, if you want to improve your energy for good, if you want to improve your health for the rest of your life and you want it to stay that way, reduce your carbohydrates, whether you want to do 50 grams a day because you're kind of just trying low carb, whether you want to go full keto and do 20 grams, or whether you're somebody who does not tolerate plants or dairy or some combination thereof, and therefore you're trying to get as close to 0 carbs as possible. That's the first step. Get rid of all the junk food and cut out sugar. Just, it's gone. Consider sugar dead to you. Because otherwise, you don't want to be dead because of sugar. Consider sugar dead to you. And it is hard. I'm not going to lie and say, it's a piece of cake. You'll do it no problem. There are withdrawals, and it is a challenge, but it is worth it. It is so worth it. And the results speak for themselves. And not just me. There's so many people out in this space who've had amazing healing and health reversals and results with weight loss and improving their energy and their overall health by doing those things. So that is kind of my gems, if you will, to share with you guys. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this has been encouraging. And please feel free to share this with anyone else that you think can benefit from this. But it's as simple as getting rid of the junk food and not eating it again, cutting out the sugar, including most, if not all, fruit. Again, if it's out of season, then your body should not be having fruit put into it when it's not in season. Okay. Cut out the most sweet and sugary fruits first. If you got to do it in stages, leave it down to just berries for now. But ideally, you probably want to cut all of it out, because right now you're trying to heal. You're trying to get your insulin levels stabilized and normal, and you want to get your blood glucose in a good, healthy, normal range. Once you are healed and you are metabolically healthy and you are not constantly having crashes and spikes and crashes with your insulin and your blood glucose, then you may be able to introduce some fruit back in from time to time. Okay, and that's an experiment you can try yourself, but I would suggest you get rid of it now. And as far as your carbohydrates, definitely get rid of the grains and the cereals and the highly starchy vegetables. Okay, that's important, because again, those have the greatest amount of carbohydrates and therefore the highest reaction to cause basically they cause your insulin to spike the most and boost up your blood glucose levels the most as well. So get rid of that stuff. Okay. Cut that stuff, either cut it down significantly or completely cut it out if you need to, which is what I did, what a lot of people have done. And that will make a huge difference. And you will absolutely start to see your weight come down. Not just water weight, but you will lose body fat. You will start to feel your energy levels improve and increase. And your overall health will be so much better. And you will feel so much better just by making those 3 simple changes. So best to you guys. All the best, of course. Let me know how you get on. I always love hearing from you. Please keep sharing your stories with me. I enjoy hearing your victories and of course, even your challenges. And any comments, any questions, please leave them in the comment section at the bottom of the video. That's it for today. I will be back tomorrow with more content, I promise. And I hope you guys keep well and enjoy the rest of your days. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye for now.